Hi there. Thank you for downloading, listening to, and watching the Lean Into Artcast. This is a show where a couple visual storytellers get together, take walks around, topics that happen across one's path when you go on this endeavor of communicating with images. We think hard about it, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Drost. I'm a cartoonist and teaching artist, and the other host is named.
I'm Rob Stenzinger. I am a user experience designer, and I make interactive stuff, and I teach about that as well.
Good to see you again.
Jerzy.
Hey, another episode for those who are watching after the fact. Yep, it's another episode of the show. But for those who watch live, yep, we're coming in a day early again because I had another scheduling mishap. So thank you to Rob for being flexible as always in putting on this putting together this project week after week. And we're coming back with a part 2 right after a part 1, which we haven't done that in a while, and I'm excited about it. So what's our part 2?
Well, okay, we started delving into note taking and making use of notes, and that we had just maybe an overambitious set of show notes, maybe, and so instead of trying to just fly through it all in one attempt, we stuck mostly with analog notes. So, doing things pen and paper in different ways, shapes, and forms, and uses and reasons why. Knowing that, guess what? Digital, it's its own thing, and it relates to the physical note world too. So why not just do an immediate follow up, and say, okay, let's face the digital notes situation.
Let's face it. And the music.
I've been watching Robotech again. It's awesome.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I have. I've got thoughts.
Maybe that'll be.
So,
yeah.
One quick aha. There's a lot more about the Zentradi seem to be a placeholder for tweens. In my opinion, it's like tweens who have lots of capability but are uncomfortable with how they're, this next life stage, right? Because they're like, oh, they see people kissing, and they're like, ew, no, and they're like, show me again,
You're right.
And it never hit me before. Anyway,
it's
love
a story
Robotech.
about maturation. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Big time. Oh my gosh. That never occurred to me. That is a pretty good aha. Protoculture. This is where protoculture comes from. It's from smooching. What?
I don't know about that. And then they just can't stop thinking about it. So anyway, anyway, thank you for the Robotech transition into
the main
first section here.
The first section. So where do you want to start on this one? Because like you take a lot of digital notes, and I have had a difficult time with it.
So I think that's the perfect place to start. Like, let's look at what it looks like when you're trying to get a foothold and make use of this stuff. You get a phone, you get a tablet, you've got maybe a desktop in the mix, and someone, you're going to encounter note-taking apps, right? You're going to reminders and just general notes and calendar or whatever. And I know our topic is mostly focused on notes, but there's things get hung up, and I think that's an interesting place to start. It's so what describe one of your recent excursions, or one that stands out where you're like trying to make use of a digital note-taking tool.
Yeah, so I switched from Mac to Windows a couple years ago now. I want to say like 3 years ago. And so and Microsoft's doing what they do, like what all the businesses are doing, where it's like, we're offering you the whole life experience where you can just live in our ecosystem and do all our stuff. And like part of me is like, I had that with Apple, and it got really frustrating really fast. I don't want to like go all in on anybody anymore. I've been hurt before.
Well, what an interesting, it's no fun, but I guarantee you every single person listening to this episode is like, oh, I've been bit the same way. So have you had like a lot of notes in any particular tool before? a lot for you?
A lot for me. Yeah, like so another I went all in on Google when, if you remember, when Google Plus and the whole Google identity that they were trying to, they were trying to be your ID
Yeah.
card in a way. I went in all on that, and so I have an inordinate amount of notes in Google Keep, which I was using for a long time.
Uh-huh.
Still using a little bit. I use it as sort of like a personal journal for uh tracking things I want to take to my doctor. Like, oh, that was weird when that happened. I'm going to talk to my doctor about that in a year. I've got like notes for that. Like, but I don't keep any work or art or other kind of journaling in that app anymore. It's more like just the thing that is quick to open, where I can keep track of things I might want to follow up with later on. And then OneNote I tried using as my art sort of notebook for capturing ideas quickly about, like, if I sketch something and I want to write a few notes about this is going to be useful in a story. Um, but I don't find that I'm going to it as readily. I'm going to my physical sketchbooks first. And then there's Microsoft Sticky Notes, which I thought was a marvelous idea. Is this little like sticky note that persists on your desktop, so you can write a little like quick to do, a disposable to do, right? Um, and I use it a little bit, but I don't really use it as I think is it's intended, or with any kind of frequency. Um, so I guess part of where would I go from there? I see you're taking notes as you're listening to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're describing the ever-present common frictions. So there's in infinite universes, there are jerseys that for some reason thought OneNote would be fine, and it's always there at hand, but but for some reason it doesn't play out like that. And a lot of digital note-taking tools have this disconnect, this extra thing or step that isn't always at hand, right? So it has to be like when you want a trusty, accessible tool, it can't have, well, a lot of, in UX design, you would say that there's some friction there in the interaction. So what's causing unavailability of that, whether it's availability as far as top of mind, where you know and trust it, that it's just worth reaching a little bit further to grab that tool because it's important and you believe in it, and it has this um it occupies a space that it gets to stay there as that tool. And a lot of digital tools don't quite get there, in my opinion. And that's and like we'll talk about my stuff in a little bit, where I don't have one path for this. I've adopted a whole utility belt of stuff, and that has become like fluent and comfortable for me. But I notice, that's not common. So I know, I like to say I'm a husband to Kate Shields Stenzinger, and she is, she's a pretty big fan of OneNote. And yet, but I like to observe behavior, right? What we say and what we do. She's super consistent, and but I must be horrible to coexist in a place with someone who's constantly trying to think, do thought experiments on what's working out. It's with goofy things like note taking. But I'll notice, like, uh, I would reach, like, when I say a note taking app is hired to do that job for me, it has to be at hand and I'm willing to grab it and use it, right? And well, like, so, but even for her, she's a huge fan of it. She uses synchronization across platforms for OneNote. And so it's not like, oh, it's not available, right? But it doesn't get hired for as many jobs, which is okay. Not everyone is as in love with note taking in all these different forms, and reasons that I do. But anyway, so what do you think it would take for one of those tools to become that, where it's worth reaching for
Yeah.
for more reasons? And how many, like, when is it enough to say, well, because honestly, it sounds like Google Keep used to have more jobs, but
Google
now it
Keep,
just has one job.
it just has one, yeah. And part of it with Google Keep is that it was really hard for me. They used last time I checked, because like I said, I've only been using it for one job. But the last time I checked, they do organization through a tagging system. So you put these tags on it, and then you just search by those tags. Whereas OneNote uses a notebook metaphor, where here's all that you create different notebooks within your OneNote account to organize like your information by subject, right? So I have like, here's like this particular project's notebook. Here's my teaching notebook. Here's the same way I would in real life. Like these are like the different buckets of my career. And then I have a links notebook if I'm just capturing links. And I think what makes me not go to OneNote as readily is that the mobile app, at least on the phone I have, is really laggy and really slow. And like when I'm saving a note, it'll just spin and spin and spin. I'm like, okay, well, I just wanted it to just put it away from me. Just put it away from me so I can come back to it later. And it's like, I'm trying. I'm looking for the file where it goes. I'm doing my best, boss. He's sweating and panting over there, And I'm like, all right, fine. And then don't do anything for me then, And I think another part of it is, to be fair to Microsoft, I'm running, what is this? A Nokia 6.1, Android phone, which, isn't like the top of the line phone. So it struggles sometimes with doing stuff. And when I had one of the Galaxy Note phones where you could write on it, I used it a lot more. Like when I could write on my phone with a pen, that was glory days. But I successfully killed 3 Galaxy Notes in a row. Like boom, boom, boom. They all just died, like bricked them, And I'm like, okay, I guess I can't use these phones anymore. So, and I'm not spending. Yeah, they were older models. I got it was like 2 years ago. I got a Galaxy Note 4, so it was like 2 or 3 years old. And yeah, I've tried to resuscitate it many times. I haven't done it. And then before that, I had the Galaxy Note 2, which was like 6 years ago. So it was like a couple years old at the time. Ann and I both had one. Mine got bricked. Ann gave me hers, and then I bricked hers. So I do something bad to Android phones. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to bad websites or anything. I think I just use them too much. I don't know. Anyway, so I did notice that like when I was able to like actually write into the phone, the notebook was literally on my body all the time, right? And it was pretty great. Capturing notes without being able to like draw or write with my hand I find it to be a little more cumbersome. It makes me not enjoy using it as much. I am not great at typing on my phone. It takes me a long time to like type messages on it. So not to sound like a total, I prefer the term silver fox myself, but you could also say middle-aged man.
You can wear that mantle of silver fox. It fits. And also a Gen Xer. Gen X is very mixed. There are very tech fluent Gen Xers and those that aren't. Or you could be tech fluent and just not, and honestly take no suffer no fools as far as technology, where you're just like, this has to be fast or go away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I have other options and what have you. I'm not going to sit here and tolerate the less than I know what it could be. I have expectations and stuff. So not that other generations don't. Broad brush generalities
right.
always suck.
Yeah.
So anyway, climbing out of that problem. So, okay. I'm hearing a lot of interesting things that, so the interface matters. Things get more complicated as soon as you go digital, and things get more complicated as far as the choice of what kinds of affordances and what tools are available on a given platform. And also the how much money are you willing to keep funneling into this thing? Because inherently the technology is more ephemeral than your something written on a piece of paper. There is there's a danger of paper being in one physical place and whatnot. It has its risks and trade-offs. A coffee spill, what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting mistakenly thrown out thousands of reasons why a physical thing it has risks, but it has different risks than the tech. And then there's also this tension between the reason the tech exists and the reason you're using it. And that's the whole, like, well, platforms want to, profit sustainably, and maybe they want to profit with what's commonly desired as hypergrowth. And so then maybe you encounter a great tool that's free and awesome that for some reason no longer is awesome and free at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or changes on a whim, so it's no longer a fit for you, right? Where a notebook doesn't transform in your pocket and you take it out and like, it's a stick of gum, dang it. And
That's true. Yeah. That's never happened to me.
Me neither yet. Who knows? Some wild notebook startup may be handing them out for free, and I'll get pulled in, and
But
we'll see what happens.
I'm curious about digging into yours in a minute too, because like I think another problem that I have is that the notebook is only useful if I attend to it, right? So my ETP is only as good as the amount of time I spend looking at it and revising it and meeting with it. And I'm not always awesome at that. But one of the things that gets me excited about digital note taking is, and this is my final friction point, is that I run into that I know of, is that it promises integration into other things that I'm making contact with on a regular basis, like my email. So like when I start thinking about like Microsoft to-dos or like sticky notes, if there's a way to like make a note and also say, also remind me of that thing, in 24 hours, 2 weeks, right? Like the Google Assistant, Siri, those kinds of things do that, where you could say like, hey, remind me in 3 weeks of this thing that I need to be attentive to, that I remember in this moment. I'm capturing it so I don't have to hold on to it anymore. I love that. Finding something that integrates with my calendars, because here's another problem, Rob, is I'm trying to transition off of Google Calendar into Microsoft Outlook Calendar for a variety of reasons. Don't need to go into that, but that's the problem that I'm facing. Is so like now I've got this legacy of 10 years more using Google different services, and trying to make that switch and funnel it all in a way that works is also difficult. So that makes it also challenging to sign on with a particular digital note-taking app, because I would love it if I could find something that could also work in some kind of reminder or calendar integration way.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, that's I mean, a lot of interesting things that I wonder if I even have. Like,
oh, so did I just ask for a pony for Christmas, Rob?
I'm totally going like, yeah, ponies are awesome, but
oh, rats.
Yeah, we're not zoned for ponies and that kind of thing. So, okay, so let's see. I think what you're talking about is possible, and it's a matter of, honestly, I don't know if we can. You may have pointed out another episode in this series
that
have to do more with the habits and the process. We can get into some of that, but that's where you can get the resilience and adaptability. When you think about, what am I doing this note taking for, and what do I want out of it? And then it's a matter of hiring or letting go of tools that fit what your process and needs are. So there's inherently, so in my whole system, to do what you're describing, I think I have all those features, but it's a hodgepodge. It's not, there's a lot of imperfection in that mix, where the to get a reminder, I'm fine if that doesn't live connected to a note that relates to that project and stuff like that. I'm fine if I need to instigate creating a note somewhere separate than a reminder, and vice versa, right? Like to track tasks, I was okay if that was separate from my notes. I've actually changed how I do that. I actually use multi-markdown checklists now. So So there's always trade-offs, but like in the mix, if you know your needs, somewhere you're going to find some combination of physical and digital tools to meet your needs. And so I guess that's like the short version of what that episode could be. But because it's like these tools pop up, platforms introduce capabilities, they know people have these different needs. You might be in that situation. So Microsoft will offer you things, Google will offer you things, Apple offers you things, and so you stumble into it and you start to use it. But what if you um, really thought about what you're trying to get out of it? And I think that you may have a map of a pile of different things on different platforms that works enough for you.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
yeah, you're operating in that tension zone between like what you need and what the platform wants you to need.
yeah, yeah, and I am very eager to be platform agnostic, right? Like because of what I was outlining at the top is like I've invested in them before and got frustrated and burned by it. So it's yeah, I would love to do something that's a little bit more United Nations of platforms. So, and it sounds like you've got something more in that direction.
I have something for notes more in that direction. For calendar, I don't really have it. I've allowed myself to get subsumed into the Google Calendar system, and for my online scheduling, I use Calendly, right?
Yeah, that is a great,
Which,
great service.
yeah, it's quite good. It integrates with Zoom. It also will it's aware of your calendar, and it lets you charge for meetings and stuff. So worth mentioning that that can help, but then you're going to need some other mechanism in the background that is synchronizing. Like I think Calendly can integrate with um, the Outlook
Mm-hmm.
calendar ecosystem too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, it's a matter of you end up getting jobs you never thought you needed to deal with, and the idea of your calendar and how it's oftentimes a combination of a relationship to you as a person and the organization that is part of the context of the calendar. And is it you as a person, you as your side business or your main business, or you as an employee or contractor somewhere? You know, calendars, whole big ball of
Yeah,
you know
but yeah,
stuff there.
so like and I don't want to go on too much of a tangent on that, or at least I didn't
Mhm.
mean to. But my point about that with regard to note taking is that there are a lot of times where I would love to take a batch of notes and say like, okay, digital service, give this back to me in 3 weeks when I'm about to prepare
Mhm.
for this presentation. Here are the notes that I made. Put them in front of my face in 3 weeks. Remind me about these notes I took. Attach them to some kind of reminder system, you know. And there are ways to do it. It's just not the most elegant thing in the world to set up, right? Like when you're making a calendar event, you can also put those notes in there as like in the comments field or whatever. But
Mhm.
I just wish within the note taking app I could also figure in that kind of integration. But that's a wish for later on. But I am curious to hear about like what you've done and see what it sparks in my imagination about what I could possibly do.
Cool. All right. We'd love to dig into that. Should we
You want
start
me?
here
Yeah,
or
let's do it.
okay.
You want me to switch to you?
All right. Let's see here. Let's say no, my my apps are full of let's
Oh,
see.
yeah. I've got the websites all
I
pulled up, so I
will
can
pull
just
up
switch.
websites. I can pull up websites,
Okay.
but like I'm not going to show my apps right now.
No, you're not going to show your apps where you do all of your journaling and tracking projects and ideas.
No. Yeah, if I were doing a workshop, I would create placeholder data to make use of that, and
Yeah.
do what you need to do, log in as a separate user, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did not go that extra mile to talk about it today. So let's see, where do we go here? So I mentioned process. You think about you need something close at hand for capturing notes, and for me, the close at hand notes are a combination of either writing stuff down on note cards or capturing in the Drafts app on iOS. Currently, the device in my pocket most of the time um, is an iPhone, and that text gets then put somewhere else, and and I'll talk about what happens to a note card in a little bit. But first, the I use a lot of um, Markdown notes, and so a lot of the um, let's see, and we can go wherever you want to go on this. I'm like hitting one of the big things right away.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're are you familiar with Markdown, Jersey?
Markdown is a coding language that allows you to organize create bolded text, italicized text, but you can also organize text into tables and even bullet lists and numbered lists and so on. Yes, it is. It is kind of like the same thing as HTML, but it's a little bit of a more, I would say, an intuitive coding language than HTML.
You don't have to learn a lot of tags and stuff, and it
Right.
can't do all the work necessarily of HTML, but proper Markdown processors allow you to actually combine Markdown and HTML. So if you really need to go to an odd, interesting place, like if you're using a Markdown to create slides through something like deck set, that's an interesting approach. I didn't even put that in the show notes, but I will prototype talks with. So I like open free text. Open free text. I can go to any platform. So like the idea that Markdown can essentially semantically divide up a document into sections with headings and subheadings, bullet lists, and all that stuff. And I know slides get a bad reputation. They can be used to do some supplemental information in a talk quite well, and especially when you're combining them with digitals and storytelling, and are using it for what they're good for. So yeah, and I'll do some talks I've completely authored in Markdown, and then I'll export it in DeckSet into like a PDF if I can't actually use DeckSet to perform it.
Hmm.
But if I can just display my computer in whatever situation, then yeah, I can stick with DeckSet, and it's really good. Of course, it doesn't cover all my different quirky needs and stuff, so I don't always work in that. It depends on what I'm building for a talk. But Markdown, so it's you may as well just say plain text. Plain text is so portable and so powerful, and that I know, like if I go to Windows and Mac or Linux or iOS or Android or whatever else comes along, Mozilla operating system, great, doesn't matter. Plain text travels. You're not stuck. So if you have text in a folder, so text documents in a file system, you name them something, they have content, they are processable and searchable by so many different tools and things. So like that is a good path to go, to say I'm going to be very either multi-platform, or I know I'll be migrating platforms. I'm a little bit nomadic where I live here for now. I know in a few years something else will come out and I might move. Nothing like your least, I guess your least regret from investing a lot of time in putting your thoughts into a format will be plain text, I would bet, and actually simple image files and even PDF. Um,
Oh, whoa, what was
so
that? What was that?
uh, PDF, you still have to finding a viewer and stuff like that for it too. It's very robustly cross-platform,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a binary format. I'm not as stoked about those unless it's just for a plain image and stuff. But there's so like if you use in your workflow PDFs, if you use SVGs, if you use I'm sorry, I'm going on a small cross-platform tangent. Plain text, and let's see, uh, what else did I? But you stick with those open formats, and actually even Photoshop's format. So you need to do some robust painting and um, visual design and stuff like that. You're really well set up. Vector, I think, if you can try to get your tool to do a good job with SVG or PDF, you're set. So anyway, that will help you go just migrate platforms a lot easier than if it's like, well, all my stuff is in Evernote or OneNote or Keep or
Mm-hmm.
Apple Notes, what have you. It's the moving to the next place is not as simple. Um, Thankfully, it's not as locked down as it used to be. In all those cases, there's often like a cloud portal that you can get to your stuff. So it's not like totally locked away, unaccessible in any way, shape, or form. But text files, again, it, they're not lockable away. I mean, unless you choose to put them in an encrypted folder and what have you. And then if you have a cloud service of your choice, your text files don't live on just one machine. They're synchronizable across a bunch of machines. And most cloud services, there's some way to get to your stuff on all the platforms I listed.
Yep.
So for Markdown editing, writing the files, if you I mean, your aesthetics will come into play here. Like, this Markdown may not be a great choice for you because you just might want to always have things that look a lot um, like a formatted word processor document, right? So it will be a hard sell, because when you're working in plain text, it doesn't always have that look. But if you pick the right editors for Markdown, you're getting closer. So especially like Typora, on Mac and Windows, we've talked about this last episode.
Mm-hmm.
It basically it turns the Markdown pretty quickly after you type it into, it recognizes it as, oh, that's a heading, or this is a list, or this is a checklist, and and it renders a checkbox. And because typically a Markdown checklist, you will have like a hyphen space, and then open square bracket, space, close square bracket, space, and then that's an open checkbox. If you put an X, a lowercase x inside of there you go. It's a checked off checkbox. And what happens in Typora, it just renders it as a checkbox, based on how that operating system would render a checkbox.
Mm.
And it's, yeah, so I'm liking that quite a bit. And it just synchronizes as soon as you save it, goes across the cloud. It's available on all the machines that you work with. I use OneWriter on iOS. You have other options, of course, but OneWriter doesn't require a subscription,
Mm.
and it's good. It's not as it doesn't, like, nothing feels quite like Typora yet that I've seen, but who knows where these tools will evolve to. But yeah, OneWriter is just a more simple look and feel. When you create a heading, it's you put a one hashtag or I don't even know what to call that symbol anymore, but you put one of those in there in your space, and then all of a sudden it makes that a little bolded and stuff. It's like it visually highlights it or emphasizes it a bit, right? And that's kind of how even IA Writer on Android works.
Mm.
I mentioned recently I did invest in an Android tablet, and it's really I wasn't it I think there's a lot of great tools. I don't want to just, I think other folks may find good use out of some of the Markdown tools available on Android, but how I wanted the tool to behave, to be, to search folders and to work well. I mean, oddly enough, their support emails are pretty good too. I had a couple quirks and concerns, and I was, I'm working all kinds of different hours of the day, and they're replying to me pretty quick, and that was nice. And it's not cheap. Like IA Writer was like $30, but I'm, Gen X, and I remember software used to cost a lot. So, um, and when I really have a job and I know this isn't speculation, it's like this is critical. This, like, I need a tool that does this job. So it's worked out. I wish it was a little more flexible about which Dropbox folders you can pick. I was only able to succeed in saying, like, okay, anything under the Dropbox/apps folder now I ended up migrating my notes where I normally kept them, so this would work out. But it wasn't that big of a deal because a couple minutes of synchronizing and they're everywhere.
So I have a question based on what you're sharing so far. When you're doing all these notes in text, are you using
Yep.
speech to text recognition or are you typing all these notes?
I That's a great question. I want keyboards. Um, so so I did get the keyboard case for my Android tablet.
Hmm?
Um, I don't like small typing experiences, and even like swipe typing and autocorrect can, honestly, I'm going to say something hot take-ish. Autocorrect can die in a fire. I am so tired of autocorrect, like mangling my vocabulary and all kinds of things that like I never would have written, and I don't want it to be suggested. And it just and I think it's become worse over the years. And I
Mm.
wonder if that's because of the overall network of typing is informing its collective behavior. I don't know. But wouldn't that make it better? Whatever. I don't know. I'm grumpy about autocorrect. So just
No, no. I mean, and this is something that I've noticed too, and maybe this is something it's a generational thing. I can't tell. But when I'm typing and the Google keyboard gives me all these suggestions of words, and then just I go to tap the suggestion, like that's the word I wanted. Then it's like, no, wait, what about this one? And then my finger touches it, and I'm like, no, I didn't want to say that word. And I didn't hit send yet.
oh,
It's not a big deal, but it's like now I got to backtrack. Now I have to backtrack because you changed the suggestion just before I tap the damn suggestion. So yeah, I'm with you.
that needs a name. There's a it's helping you with a gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like autocorrect prank, you know? I don't I don't want like surprise in this. I want a word that you theoretically could help me type faster by doing some prediction.
Yeah.
Predictive text was pretty good a few years back, but
Mm.
anyway,
Okay, so you're using
it's
keyboards to do
yeah.
your input on your
I'm
notes.
using keyboards, and occasionally I will use speech to text. I've found the speech to text integrated in the Apple platform to be pretty good. Primarily speech to text. When I do that, it'll be with my watch, and I'll throw a note into what is essentially one of my inboxes. My inboxes get visited. This is the process you have will make this robust or not. Otherwise, you're just throwing data into the universe, right? So you need some way to follow up on the stuff that you make, and like putting these notes. These notes have a job, and if it's just one and done, it's probably not doing anything then. So what's the job of this note? So so drafts is like just capture, don't worry about what's going to happen next. Just that I know that I'm going to visit my drafts inbox and throw stuff through its built-in actions. I can turn drafts into a Google Doc, or a often send it to a particular Dropbox Markdown folder.
Mm.
So because that's my archive, that's my database of both active things. I have essentially two branches of folders I use. Like I've got essentially my my sort of management task, project, what have you folder, but then I have my documents folder where it's this things that are writing that turns into some kind of document output is to me like a creative. It's a project, and it's different than it's a work product versus managing a project, I guess.
Okay.
So that's why, but that's for me. Maybe one folder would work for you.
Okay.
But yeah, the let's see. And then so so that having a place for that to come in some way, shape, or form, or what have you. Sometimes using speech to text. I'm curious about that too, Jerzy. Are you a fan of speech to text, and is that working for you? Or
I default to it a lot because the typing experience is so difficult for me on phones. I have such a hard time typing in any kind of like efficient way. Because of what we were talking about with autocorrect and with the predictive text And Rachel's watching live, and it says like, I also think that predictive text is getting worse. She says, I mean, just because you don't know what shrinky dinks are doesn't mean I made a typo. Autocorrupt. Yeah. Yeah, it's things like that too, right? So and then also, anyway, but yes, I use it for texting a lot. And if I need to capture a thought quickly in text, I will often use speech to text. But again, my phone's kind of old and a little bit laggy, so sometimes I'll be like, I'm listening. And I'm like, and I say 3 sentences like, wait, I wasn't listening. Now I'm listening. Say that again. I'm like, okay, well, now I don't want to do anything anymore. So anyway, so I don't know. It's like I want to talk about the different jobs that you've hired, the different journaling and note-taking apps to do in a second. I wonder if we should take a break in a minute. And you're also reminding me of a friend that I had who he got so sick of like the difficulties of different smartphones and how quickly they went out of how quickly they became obsolete, that he actually just got like a flip phone as his phone, and he's carried like a mini tablet as his like do things like on the move thing, and instead of relying on a phone. And I almost wonder about that sometimes. I think about that guy a lot, and like I wonder if he's really happy with the life he's chosen, because like it's just, I think one of the stumbling blocks is that I have yet to find a device that I can put in my pocket that can adequately capture all those things in a way that is effortless and invisible to me. And you look like you have an idea.
I have another keyboard. That's the thing. So for my phone in my pocket, I also have this keyboard, and it's been so trusty. And I've been using this for years, so long that my kids have commented like, that thing's still working. Wow.
Okay. So how about, do you want to go get that keyboard while I do the ad break?
Yeah. All right. Yes.
So in a minute and 30 seconds, we're going to find out what this keyboard is that Rob's talking about. But we got to thank some people who make this show possible. And those people are the folks who support us on Patreon. Yes, patreon.com/leanintowart is the website. What is it? It's a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. If you believe in Rob and Jerzy and what we create here at leanintowart.com, you can make it more sustainable by contributing as little as $1 a month. You can also do a one-time contribution and just, avail yourself of the behind-the-scenes content, and then, check out at the end of the month. If that's, the way you want to do it, that's totally cool by us. But I want to thank 5 people who've been supporting us on a regular basis, on an ongoing basis. So Dave Srisay, thank you, Dave Srisay, for supporting us and believing in us and what we do. You can find Dave on Twitter at Dave Say, S-E-A-H. And Ashley Knapp, thank you, Ashley, for supporting us for so long. Longtime supporter of the show, longtime believer in what we do here. It means a lot to us, Ashley. And Mike White, you can find Mike White on Instagram at Mike White Robot. Also, you can find him in the Lean Into Art Discord, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Thank you, Mike. And then Greg Horvath, thank you, Greg, for believing in us and what we do. You can find Greg on Twitter at IGMHorv77. And Stephen Black, thank you, Stephen. You can find Stephen on Twitter at Black's Sideshow. You can join them all at leanintowart.com/Patreon or patreon.com/leanintowart, where you'll find all the shows we make, as well as the extra leans, the shows that we record only for people who support us on Patreon. Those posts become an open mic thread where you can talk about whatever you want in a safe space with fellow leaners, and it also gets you access to the Lean Into Art Discord. Well, it's public, but we also have special channels for people who support us on Patreon. Thanks to everybody who has been supporting us on an ongoing basis. It means a lot to us. Okay. Mm-hmm. Rob, did you find it?
Oh, Jerzy, I did find it. It's the Dicto Pro, right? And it folds up and is not, it's a little bit, it's roughly the size of my hand, right? And you see, here's my phone with, it has its keyboard up, but I open this and boop, there we go. Now you can tell it just took a second for the, so now I'm able to, let's see, I'll just mash the keyboard here. There we go.
I'll be darned.
It basically, the OS software keyboard goes away or comes back when I open or close the, well, it didn't, there we go. It came back. There we go. That's a little demo. And so, yeah, this keyboard is, it's roughly full sized. And it's a little bit ergonomic because of the angle of the keys and the separation. So I actually like the typing experience on this quite a bit. And
Wow.
and so, pre-pandemic, I typed up many a thing in the coffee shops with this, or meetings and whatnot, where I'm the guy where it's like, hey, guess what? I'm not just note card guy.
Hmm?
Boom, I got those around me, and I may have like a whole constellation depending on the meeting. I've got I've got that keyboard in front of me too, and you know,
What's the battery
that's
life like on that?
it's pretty good. I can probably charge it just once a week, and it's fine. It's a little, you hit the function key plus R to know the battery, and then it'll blink at you a few times, and 4 blinks, full battery, or full enough.
Okay.
But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it's there's a whole set of possible tools and things out there that maybe, you know because of your use case, that's what matters the most. Like, what job are you using this for? And there's options to adapt. This was $20, and it's very pocketable, and somehow has lasted, I think, 4 years at this point, if not more. But
Oh,
at least 3 years.
there's
So
two versions.
yeah.
There's the Dictapro D100 and then the one
Okay.
that you have. So the D100 I'm looking at right here, it looks like does the same deal, little foldy
Uh,
guy, but it looks like it's like a little bit more industrial looking, maybe. Uh,
yeah,
and then
it
there's
looks
yeah,
sturdier.
and then
Is that more expensive?
they're the same, $19, but they both say sold out right now. So they're running a sale. It
Oh,
just says sold out. But I am consider me fully intrigued. This sounds great. So I am glad that we talked about this today, Rob.
oh, good. So that's, yeah, with a little bit of, adapt and morph whatever tool you have to fit your needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because whatever it is, I want to get things captured and funneled into this system, into essentially folders where I've got, well, I mentioned my Markdown folders, but then there's also the scans and that kind of stuff. So things that come in as visual note cards, or honestly, dry erase boards, whiteboards, and what have you.
Mm.
That if it's important enough, then in it goes. Um, what Which I don't know if like, that's an interesting thing where we talked about technology, uh, sometimes goes obsolete. For some reason, scanners do that,
Mm.
where they have a lifespan of driver support, and the combination of uh, operating system evolution, right, going to 32-bit to 64-bit to 64-bit mandatory to sandboxed, and all these kinds of things that are happening on the different operating systems. You can run into a situation where suddenly your drivers don't work anymore, or they got fixed by the company, but now they don't behave the way they used to, right?
Mm.
That's what happened to me with my old ScanSnap, which, I mean, we mentioned this on the show ages ago.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is the thing that you just like drop your index cards into, and then it scanned them into Evernote for you ages ago, right?
Right. No longer Evernote, just they go into a PDF, into a folder.
Mm.
And then the critical step after that is, so Evernote used to do the visual, handwriting recognition and store all this metadata with that. That never turned out to be as useful as I was hoping.
Mm.
Um, it's not like as robust as saying, oh, I put this in a folder that means this for this project, or the nature of this note is still, I don't know where I'm going to use this. I want to remember this. So I just need to describe what I just captured. And that's part of the bringing notes in to, to their archive, is just giving it a decent name. And that's actually quite findable.
Mm.
So just remember that, file names can be a lot longer than you would expect.
Mm.
So be specific enough. Use nouns that are meaningful to you. Use repeatable nouns that fit your process, and throw some verbs in there, throw some adjectives. I mean, whatever it takes, whole sentences.
Oh,
You can have long file names.
I'm so wanting to ask my wife to come on to talk about controlled taxonomies. Like that's like one of her jams, right? It's like coming up with
Sure.
taxonomy for like sorting information. Which because like I this is another thing that made me stop using Google Keep was like I went, okay, I'm gonna file this under comics. Oh, that was helpful, Jerzy. That was really helpful to put that tag on it.
I'm gonna call you Note.
By the way, my passwords are not password, but you would almost guess that based on my tagging system. So when your driver failed, or rather the driver stopped working on that scanner, what did you do?
Right. Good point. There's I ended up finding an app. I think there was some open source stuff or what have you, but I found an app that it's not cheap, but it works. It's called ViewScan, and it's at hamrick.com. And I mean, it's there. I came to realize, I guess I'm not alone. There's a whole lot of scanners that seem to just sort of fall out of favor or just no longer supported. And I was, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so critical to my process. This thing I have hired to do important jobs, and it's broken. What do I do? And I was comparing. I was looking at new scanners, and it's just like, well, how could I do this because I barely justified getting that scanner in the first place, because it was like 400 something bucks back in the day. And I'm like,
and if it's still working,
and then it still physically works. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's doing great. I needed to clean the scan lens the other day. Easy peasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise it's been amazing, because it threw there's a blue line down all of my scans, and I'm like,
okay, yeah.
And is this the end of the road? But no, it's just some little gunk got stuck on the lens, and very cleanable, fixable. I used glasses cleaner on it. So anyway, so ViewScan just brought me back, and what's funny, it was an upgrade from the approach of the manufacturer's scan software, as far as the amount of options, as far as the less load on my system, as far as loading in the background and stuff. It just I don't know, I am a fan, and I bought the fancy version of it because I couldn't tell you, but in the list of features and comparing the options and stuff, I ended up getting the pro version. So.
Well, another aspect of this, I mean, not to belabor this whole idea of like keeping old technology, but like I've become a lot more aware. I mean, having had a lot of technology in my life for the last 20 years, of the amount of waste that I've been creating, and so I'm trying to be a lot more conscious of keeping my stuff alive longer. We did an episode actually on like keeping old machines alive through using open source software and Linux and things like that. And so one of the things that I think about, this is why I have kind of an old crusty phone, is that like I don't want to buy new if I can avoid it. So I'm always going to try to buy used, just to keep it going a little bit longer, not in some, ethical or not ethical recycling facility, So I'm curious about this because I have a couple different old scanners that I could probably resuscitate with that. So
pretty likely, and I think it works on Windows and Mac, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. When I loaded the page, it said download for Windows 10. So very cool.
So yeah, I've been very happy with that. I've been using that software for years, and so yeah, I've been able to continue my process. Throw a stack of note cards in there, and of course, when I put if I have 20 note cards and 5 are for this conversation, 2 are for this, 1 is for that, I don't scan them all at the same time. So it's because it's easy enough to be like, okay, throw this stack in, scan it, wait, throw this scan, and it just goes really quickly. And all of a sudden I have a few PDFs, and I just look at them. I do a quick preview on the file, and I rename it, like, oh, boop, 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 this is what's in this one. This is what,
okay.
And then I make use of all this stuff through just file search.
Very cool. All right. What's the name of that scanner again?
So my scanner is the IX500, the physical scanner. The software is ViewScan.
Right. I pulled up ViewScan on screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the ScanSnap IX500. So I just want to pull it up on screen so people can see it who are watching the video. So it's this little bitty guy. that you just like drop the note cards into, and it does a quick scan, runs it through, right? So you're not opening up like a giant scan bed. What a cool device. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's I mean it's a has like limited use, but like what it does, it looks like it does it really well.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Ah, there's
Oh,
turn down the
it's
Rob
not
cam.
my camera when it's oh, is it awake? Is it not awake? It's not awake. Come back. All right. Oh,
Yeah, and
sorry, man.
Rachel's chiming in on this too. I also hate throwing away old tech because of the hazardous batteries and not sure what to do with them. Yeah, I mean, like it's there's a lot of ambiguity there with regard to you know ethically recycling old technology. Um, oh, look at that! It's so cool. And there you go. Boom. Scanned, scanned, scanned. It scans that fast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And let's see, I'll pull up the app and then boom, now it's in. It's yeah, so ViewScan did its thing, it made the PDF, and now all I need to do is just rename that thing. So
that's really cool. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. I hope Anne is not watching because I think I just found a holiday gift idea. Okay, I'm saving that link. Okay, so we talked about like hiring the different notebooks for the different kinds of jobs. Like, so like for instance, when we did like last episode, I talked about my ETP, and my ETP gathers a certain kind of information, but I'm not journaling about my day in there as much. It's not a place to catalog my personal life. It's a place to catalog or track the different work activities that I do on a daily basis, right?
It sounds like it's your executive function machine. It's your ability to be strategic and tactical. It's project management stuff.
Right.
That's a common job, right?
Yep.
So people could use, what are Wonder List, if that's still a thing. All
Trello.
kinds of anything that's like a hierarchy and a task system. Yep. Trello. That's I'm totally forgetting the one I used to use a lot.
And another one that
OmniFocus.
Oh yeah, yes, OmniFocus is another one. Airtable has also got a lot of features like that now. Microsoft is rolling out what is it? It's some kind of competitor to Airtable that's doing a very similar thing. Anyway, but yes, I want to talk about like this general digital note taking though, like because you've got different jobs for different apps.
Yeah. And there's no app that really can do everything that well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I've migrated away from OmniFocus to where I just my Markdown files are doing probably the most jobs, right? So it's a matter of working with text in large documents, and then long-term memory and task management stuff. Those two jobs totally working with that ecosystem of Markdown stuff, right? But then other things can come in visually in different places, but they all go into then that visual note archive. So if I'm doing visual note taking and sketching and that kind of stuff, and this became a document that needs to go in that long-term memory, and it lives outside of a project, well, it goes into that note archive of PDFs and PNGs and JPEGs, basically, because stuff can go from my photo roll as well, of like, well, here was a useful Kanban, like we talked about a thing, wrote some stuff on stickies, what have you. Okay, boom, take a picture, throw it on the list, give it a good name, right? Because IMG 052630 isn't going to help anybody. And even the file date, like, just give it a good name, and you will think future you will be so happy with past you.
Yep. Yeah. Now that you mention, I think about the way I use Google Photos is I never search by date. I always search by place. What was the context? Where was I when I'm the memory I'm trying to find? Okay, that was when I was in Washington D.C. I think it was 2008. I don't know, but let's do a search for Washington D.C. Right, and then that gets me faster to where I need to be. So if I can put some of that contextual information in the file name, yeah, that would probably. Yes, and you're right. Search. I'm still thinking of like 1999, 2001 kind of terms of like coming up with a naming convention and a folder structure hierarchy for organizing this information. That I don't. That's not the way I search for my stuff. So
Yeah, and even if you did and it meant something to you at a time, you put something in a folder,
yeah.
as long as you're using a tool that says, I don't worry about folders, I just search your drive, or I search like, oh, this entire folder hierarchy, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do on Windows other than like in Typora, for example. Like I don't have a great way to search my visual notes archive on Windows. So
Mm.
that's a to do. I'll have to figure that out. I know
Okay.
I used to use like there's got to be a desktop indexing tool of some sort, and whether it's built in or not. I'm kind of new as far as migrating to also use Windows, so we'll see. But things like on Mac OS, you can use the MD find command,
Mm.
and that's pretty darn powerful. Where if you're comfortable with the command line, you can essentially do a you can use, type MD find in a word, and this is going to bring up a bunch of files. You can type up MD find a word and then start using some of the uh, query language for MD find, like say kind colon PDF. Okay, that's going to narrow stuff down. You can use the in folder attribute too, and all of a sudden, like, you're able to really hunt pretty fast with a little bit of uh, search typing. So that's really worth looking into if you're a Mac user. So that's kind of that's a big part of searching my text and image files. But then you mentioned the other jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I use a couple other apps too. So I use let's say, I don't know if, and I'm curious what your reaction to this too, where it's like, do you like your visual inspiration board type stuff? I know Pinterest is an obvious choice, but um, I kind of I squirrel away the stuff that I think, oh my gosh, that's an amazing color palette, or this is a sweet robot. So I have a collection of that kind of stuff, and I use Inboard as like a sort of a local hard drive type of Pinterest and browsing experience. It's a great reference for that kind of thing, but a pretty specific job, because it's like, I need to make a mood board for this next project and nourish myself with a few different things that I know are really strong inspirational images, right?
Mm.
So that's yeah, that's a task that do you
Oh, so
let's see,
this
is
is
that a
this is this is an app that lives on your computer. So these files are like on your
does
computer. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It does. It integrates with Dribble and stuff too, but
Okay.
that's not my that's not really my jam. So
Mm. Okay. No, I
um
don't currently have anything like this. And yeah, I occasionally go back and visit my Pinterest account and go, it's a mess in here. It's I think of it like with like going to like some kind of like vacation cabin that you keep, and then getting back and be like, I really should have cleaned this place before I left the last time. That it has that kind of feeling whenever I go back. I'm like, I see all the potential this thing could have, and then yeah, it's just I didn't organize it. I probably should just like nuke my account and do like a ground zero sort of like rebuilding if I wanted to do that. But because yeah, I would love to be able to keep something like this, an inspiration board, or even like what we used to call our reference morgues in the old days, where we have like files with like folders of like this is a project related folder of reference imagery, right?
that's
But
100% what it is.
yeah.
And yeah, it's uh and that because I will do some visual illustration or visual development of stuff, and that kind of tool, I mean, it's got a job for me. So I was glad when I came across it, because Pinterest never quite fulfilled that need of like, well, I have been maintaining my own set of files and they just haven't been that accessible. I wish something looked like a convenient way to explore these, and ideally be tagged, which I use. Let's see, I currently have a Set App account, and so um, there's this interesting. So Set App is like a subscription service to a whole pile of apps that you can just instantly install and don't have to pay another fee for. It's like a Netflix for apps. Remember Uber for blank being a business model?
Yeah.
But this is addressing a pile of needs. Joking aside, where you have independent developers who need ways to have sustainable revenue to make these complex tools, and so SetApp is a pretty good solution. And I want to support indie developers. Like uh, I want to support the people who make the kind of things I care a lot about, and that I'm also one of those people.
So
And
this is, I'm reminded of like the humble bundles like they used to do for apps, but this is like unbundling, but curating, like an app store
yes,
for indie apps. Got it. Okay.
think about a particular quirk or need. You're like, hey, I need to query a SQL database. What in the world am I going to use? And SetApp is like, yeah, we got one. Here you go.
Cool.
Oh, I need to, quickly transform a ton of, images to be this certain size, and I don't want to do a custom action in my photo editor. Okay, great. There's all these quirky tools that you can just quickly pull from. Anyway, so I ended up replacing my local licensed um, inboard with the Set App version, and it nuked all my tags and stuff. But which not, it sucks. I used to have such a sweet, like just dialed in I'm like, okay, data visualization, um you know uh cartoon, what was the 1960s, like UPA style,
Oh, the cartoon modern look.
cartoon modern look, whatever. I just was doop boop, and now it's just a pile of images. It's still nice to use, but anyway, you won't have that issue, I imagine. But I've been a user of inboard like for ages, and I'm like, okay, I just want to do the right thing and make sure they keep getting revenue. Anyway, yeah, couple more sources and stuff,
Yes,
or just
please.
even highlight.
Let's do a couple more because because I was talking about how I wanted to use what is it? Not Evernote. OneNote to send my web links, and then it would go like, "I'm trying," and I'm like, "Well, okay, I'll come back later when you're done." So what do you use for that?
Oh wait, okay. So web links have I have a primary web link thing, and I have just in case, I just need to quickly capture this in a way that I know it's not going to be spinning its wheels and saying like, please hold on, I need to get you a receipt for that, and then disappearing into the back. It's so I use Pinboard.
I
So
remember Pinboard. Yeah,
yeah,
still around. That's awesome.
yep, pinboard.in. We've talked about how I have a link saving thing. I'm currently at 30,807 links, which I'm not sharing at my screen, by the way.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Like, it's it's Pinboard is it's a great tool. It works well with browsers that let you do what is it? It's called a I don't use them that much anymore. It's when you have a shortcut, what is it called? It's
A
like an
bookmark.
applet, bookmarklet. There we go.
Bookmarklet.
Bookmarklet. There we go. So if I'm, consuming any document anywhere on the web, I just click my bookmarklet to, remember this thing, and it just puts it my pinboard. And so that's how it's like, things like art and science punks, when it's like, oh, I need an art pick, I need a science pick, or what have you. I mean, I just dive through that list, and there's always stuff in there. So
That's super cool.
yeah.
So yeah, you've created like a dragon's den, a treasure pile of information to dig through for potential shows.
Yeah.
In addition to
I have.
other things, I'm certain. But okay, but then there's like I hang on to this for later, um, link sharing. What was the other
Yeah.
one?
So I'll use the share pop up in like iOS to throw something into drafts,
Oh, okay.
because like a lot of, if you find a link through like your Twitter feed or Facebook or what have you, there's all these extra steps. It's like, oh, I need to get this all the way to my web browser to then save to Pinboard or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I will just say, okay, send it to drafts. Done. And
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
Um,
So what about Evernote? Because we talked a lot about that in the early days of Lean Into Art. Where does that function for you now?
it's a lot like how you mentioned Google Keep for you,
Mm.
right? Where Evernote had way more jobs in the past. And now, in a way, it's like, and that's my old notebook pile. It's also where I will put research. So if I, am on like Harvard Business Review or um, medium.com or something like that, where it's like, oh, I used up my articles for the day or whatever, but I want to refer to this thing, and because I need to think about like, digging further into this, good article about, I don't know, UX strategy or who knows, right? I will essentially take that, web page and put it in Evernote. So it is a scrapbook at this point, a research um, article scrapbook.
Mm.
It's its primary job now.
Okay.
And it has this other quirk that it integrates with my current screenshot app, but I know I need to. Sketch has gone a direction that I don't feel is working for me. So
Mm.
Sketch is that screen capture app, not screen share, but it will, you know, capture something. You want to throw something into your visual, um, archive. It's convenient, but it has these quirks as far as getting the files in and out. And that changed. It used to be like you could have a bunch of screenshots and you could just select them all and drag it to a folder or something, right? And then put it into a project and all. But now you have to export them all individually,
Mm.
and
Mm.
but it odd quirk. Evernote owns it, and so those things show up in Evernote, which eh. So I need to. That's a to do on my radar, which is to figure out my screen capture um, process, get it integrated into that visual note archive in a better way, because it's essentially like an inbox that's always stale, where it's like, I didn't sort that. Where's the stuff?
Yeah.
And it's just not as handy as that set of files in that visual archive. It's so yeah. But anyway, what let's see, any other tools or quirks or questions, use
Well,
cases
I
come to
mean,
mind that
so the other one that I was thinking of was I was talking about when I had a Galaxy Note phone, when I could write on my phone with a pen, which was, oh, that was such a lovely time. Um, I found that I used some note taking apps a little bit more. I'm curious, if do you have any sketchnoting type apps that you like using?
oh yeah, yeah, totally. I actually like to use um it, like if I'm going to go to an event, and I look forward to going to physical events and watching people give talks and stuff like that. I really like to sit back with either something like Squid Notes or even Metabang, and doing
Metabang.
some visual note taking. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's not like, think about, it's the rapid feel of putting marks down on your digital canvas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here I can switch, I think, to show you what I do.
Okay. I'll bring up Metabank Paint on the screen so people can see what we're talking about. It is a drawing app that works on mobile and on the desktop, and it's free. We've talked about it before, and it's actually a pretty sweet drawing sketch tool. And it was my tool of choice when I had a phone I could draw on. I loved working in Metabank. Oh, and it syncs with your account. So if you make custom brushes, it'll sync to your whatever device you're using if you're logged in.
All right. So I haven't used it a lot on my Android device. So it brought up some defaults that aren't my total jam. But so let's say I'm about to, sit in a session and I know that, let's say I will do like a quick layout that gives me essentially note sections, and then I'll take that layer and drop the opacity. Okay. Yep, drop that opacity and go ahead and create a layer over it. And then I'll start taking notes in that layer. So, yep. And I don't like
So
this.
for those who are listening in audio, Rob's like sort of drawing out some boundaries a la comics panels, reduce the opacity on that. Now he's drawing on a layer over top. So these areas, these discrete areas are being described in light gray underneath.
Yeah. So, and what's funny is I'm at a loss for picking a brush on this version of Metabank because I'm pretty new to the Android Metabank. Beep boop.
I want to say it's down by the eraser tool at the bottom of your screen, I think. If you hit that pen.
All right. Yeah. This pen.
Nope.
Not happening.
Nope.
Yeah. So, because my my brush is way too big. Okay, there I can reduce it. So let's say I have I've got a speaker that is about to give a talk, and I'll just get some visual representation captured for them, and and just get like a title going for the event. And it's let's see, it's going, I don't know, I'll do a big bold thing for what the main talk is about. And but I'm using the cues of the background as like a bit of my plan uh, as far as where I'm going to go.
And apparently I'm doing a talk about competitive eating in Rob's sketch notes.
Yep. So
you capture a quick little doodle of the person, and then you're using shape and size and line to indicate like importance of information, a la sketchnoting, by like having the title of the talk in bigger, bolder letters, and then a little note in the side next to the doodle of me indicating who the speaker's name is, and then already start doodling in some like sort of playful visual ideas of here's little, little sandwich jostling for the camera. And then in some of the areas, now you're creating a list.
So yeah, and then yeah, I'm just so this if I was listening to you, give this talk, I'm going to, go ahead and capture some combination of visual and prose to give me a memory of taking part in that experience. And that's but the big advantage that I wanted just to demo enough of the note taking was how you can lay out some regions that now become essentially their own, like you said, a comic panel or a page within the page kind of thing. That helps me with I don't have to do that thinking on the fly for the note taking. Because one app that where if you're dealing with a known canvas size, that you just don't want to get cramped in a corner and get stuck. So the other app I like to use is now that I'm back on Android is Squid. There were Note Shelf is the one that I use on iOS, and then but yeah, so Squid. It's funny is each pen has a different pressure sensitivity to it. It's like the pen that comes with the my Samsung tablet is for some reason it's like by default it has more pressure.
Mm. It's softer. It's easier to get a really thick line.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's the inverse. It's like with these other pens, it's it's a lot more pressure needed from me. So then what's interesting is I don't need to on Squid Notes, I don't have to be as precious about zones of note taking, because it has an infinite canvas, right? So I could be like all of a sudden you've switched to a different chapter in your talk, and I could just move the page, just be like, okay, now this is the new thing, and then throw in other stuff. And there's a lot of flexibility in something like Squid Notes, because I can always say, hey, wait a minute, I need a little more room for this. And all right, it's easy, where it's this vector layer over stuff where I can recompose on the fly and resize and all that stuff.
You transform, so you can skew, and you just just go ahead and use the pointer tool to drag and select entire ranges of the note and just move all of the writing and the art to a different part with just like dragging.
Yeah. So
and it can export to PDF and SVG as well, can it?
Yeah, totally. So you can export one page or just the entire thing as a PDF. So it's a very flexible tool. And so this then, it has whatever name it has when it shows up in my visual archive, but I can give it a new meaningful name by making sure I get in there and review those new files that show up. Whether it's because of course the Metabank file, it's going to be just pixels in an image, right? There's nothing for my OS to really search into that, but the name of it is always a source of metadata, clarity about, tell me about this thing that I'm saving. So it's critical, and it gives you so much more flexibility and power to be able to go to different tools and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Rob, I think we might have walked around the topic a little bit. Do you want to maybe take one more break and then talk about, just remind everybody what our 2-minute practice is?
That sounds excellent. Don't want to forget about our 2-minute practice.
We don't want to forget about that. Okay, so we'll come back in a couple minutes. We'll remind everybody our 2-minute practice. Have any little closing thoughts on this digital note taking, and maybe some cues as to what we're going to do with the topic in the future. So before we do that, we've got to thank some more people who make the show possible. Those people are us. We make the show possible. We work on all these other projects. We work really hard on them, and we bring all that thinking into this thing we call Lean Into Art. And the thing that I work on that I hope you will check out is a podcast called the 4 Million Years Later podcast, which is a show where an old friend and I watch an episode of the Generation 1 Transformers cartoon in story order and then convene to talk about what we saw. So yes, it's a story analysis show, which would be delightful for anybody who's a fan of the Transformers cartoon. But I would argue that it's also just, if you're just interested in listening to people break down story thoughtfully, I think it has something to offer you as well. Because we dig really deep into all the choices made in the story to analyze what worked, what didn't, what do we wish would have been there, what did we love as children, and how has that changed as into our adulthood, and what did we hate as children and now love as adults, and what persisted, what was the stuff we loved as kids and we continue to love. So it's also a little bit about perspective taking too. Perspective taking of like a young person watching an entertainment and an old person watching entertainment. So you can find it at 4millionyearslater.com. And you can find it in podcatchers everywhere. And thanks to everybody who's been, interacting with that show. It's a fun project to work on. Rob, are you ready?
It's a wonderful project. I want a quick react. I got a quick reaction. So a lot of times in storytelling, you gotta, I've learned the hard way. It's like there needs to be a little bit of space for someone to go, wow, such power. And the wow, such power moment for 4 million years later is like someone recently wrote in the Leaning to Art Discord about like being, looking for mellow podcasts to talk about, to just relax at night. And 4 million years later has this combination of energy, but without like abrasive energy, right? And so you got the nourishment of the storytelling analysis, but then you also have the soothing voices of Jerzy and Hoover exploring the Transformers. And yeah, it's awesome. Love that show.
Thanks, Rob. All right, so what do you want to talk about?
Well, I would like to just point out, for my part, if you like to support the things I do, and I bet there's lots of areas that I make some stuff that could help you out. And a great place to learn about all that is robstenzinger.com/store.html. And so first, you'll notice that I do some creative process coaching, things like, choosing that next big thing. Like you've got different projects in your path. Which one are you going to do? We could do a couple coaching sessions to help you through that. And of course, the first coaching session is free. You get to learn about this whole thing by getting a brief exploration of it. So yeah, or if you're starting to include user-centered design in your process and your project or your company, you can connect with me here as well. Also, I just want to point out a couple of workshops that I have available for you at your own convenience. You can check them out either via Skillshare.com or go to the easy link here, and you'll be taken to my Gumroad store, where you can just buy it and have your own access to that. You can stream it or download it from Gumroad. Very flexible. Bring it to any device you need. Those two workshops in particular are drawing user journey maps to design user experience, gather ideas, and collaborate. And this is all about trying to perceive more on that thing and see other perspectives on the product you're making, the service that you provide to your audience. But then how do you connect other really helpful perspectives that are maybe outside your normal day-to-day point of view, and connect that on a timeline and say, it's really a lot easier to see what's really important that we can fix or do or invent next with this project. So yeah, that's drawing user journey maps. Really handy planning and collaboration tool to learn about in that workshop. Then I also have the Customizing Your Next Creative Challenge workshop, which it helps you go through a process of thinking about what is important to you to get a great experience out of this, a creative challenge, especially if you're going to do one either alone, solo. What would that be? You could design your own, or if you're going to take part into a public one like NaNoWriMo or what have you. How do you make that be a thing that really works and fits you right now? Whether it's learning experience or creating an actual product at the end, and tune that. And this is a thoughtful set of tools to tune any kind of creative challenge to your needs and liking. So all that is available at robstenzinger.com/store.html.
robstenzinger.com/store.html. And the last thing we hope you will check out today is the Lean Into Art Discord. Yes, we have a forum now where you can interact with people who enjoy the show. It's freeing you from the chat streams. We appreciate everybody who shows up to our live streams and interacts with us, but you can continue on the conversation in the Lean Into Art Discord. There's 3 public channels, and then there are some channels that are only available to people who support us on Patreon. The invite link will be in the show notes of this episode and every episode. It's not like discord.com/leantoart. It's like there's an invite link to get into it. And it's like a private Twitter, which is actually incredibly refreshing. Thanks to everybody who's been interacting with us there. It's been really great to have a place to get to know you little bit more of an ongoing basis. So, all right, are you ready to have our 2-minute practice reminder?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, what's the 2-minute practice for those who are tuning in for the first time?
So 2-minute practice is a segment of our show, the regular show, but we actually separate it off into its own feed as well. So you can just focus on this sort of interactive exploration experiment where there's all kinds of things that we can do to explore new experiences, to learn, to grow as creators, or just as human beings. And so if you like, what if you tried this stuff just 2 minutes at a time? And that's the basic idea of the 2-minute practice, is to have something to practice and just set a timer and make it as inexpensive as you can to get these experiences. And so, yeah, every couple of weeks we introduce a new one that we're doing. But of course, as you're playing along, it's it's up to you to pick any kind of practice that suits your needs. And of course, we'd love to hear from you as well in our Discord, and oftentimes in the what is it, the Creative Challenges channel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, challenges, quests.
Challenges, quests. There we go. Yep. It's you'll see dialogue about what folks are trying, and little community within the whole lean into art thing. So, well, what are we currently practicing, Jerzy?
Doing stretching for 2 minutes, taking a purposeful pause in the day. If you can go back and listen to the last episode, which is only like 5 minutes long, it'll bring you up to speed on what we've been doing and what we're doing next. But yeah, we're reminding everybody, if you want to join along with us, we're just doing 2 minutes. Trying to do it daily, as many times as you can. In the weeks, the 2 weeks between sessions, and just taking a minute to stop and stretch your arms, stretch your back, attending to and being aware of your body for a couple minutes in any given workday. And we'll convene next week to talk about what we experienced in doing that. And you can listen in by going to leanintowart.com/2-minute practice, or just stick around to the end of the next week's episode. So. All right,
that's really fun. I wonder if anyone would like a remix of the 2-minute practice ever, where the introduction of the challenge and the completion of the challenge were in the same episode. Because right now right now it's a chain of sort of
handoffs.
We talk about the prior one. Yeah, there you go. It is like a handoff or relay kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once in a while it hits me like, hey, what if there were a 2-minute practice remix where every episode were the whole thing, the whole practice. So
I would love to hear from the leaners on this, because like we're approaching the end of 2020, and that would be a really good time to make that shift if we decided to do that. But I would like to know from them, like, what would you prefer? Those who have been listening to the 2-minute practices, do you like the handoff nature? Or would it be interesting for you to like package it up in one episode, so then like you get the full experience? But yeah, I don't know. I right now I feel like the handoff works really well, because like it's designed to be interacted with. We're asking people to play along and show up and share their experiences. But
yeah, absolutely, that's a super good point. It would creating that tightly coupled start and end to it would get rid of that middle. Everyone play a long time.
Yeah. Well, at least with the 2-minute practice podcast, it would. But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting question. We'll see if anybody interacts with that and gives us some feedback on what they're preferring. But either way, next week we'll find out what we experienced. So, and that's to say that, first of all, thanks for this conversation, Rob. This was actually extremely helpful in helping me navigate like how to more thoughtfully approach digital note taking, and like feel like I'm availing myself of my digital devices a little bit more than I have been. So thanks for that.
I'm glad to hear it. It's a pleasure. It's always one of those things, having so many thoughts on the topic. I appreciate navigating this with you, and I'm glad it was useful. So thank you.
And we record this show weekly, usually on Thursdays. So we'll be back next Thursday. Stream it live at noon Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central. And then we broadcast on a variety of platforms and collect it as a podcast at leanintowart.com and patreon.com/leanintowart. We'll be back next week. Until then, I've been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com and Rob Stenzinger all over the internet.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.